Hey guys,
What's
welcome to my
guys?
channel. Got Randy here with me again.
Thanks for having me here, Zap Girl. I'm glad to be back.
Well, all right. Well, today we're gonna read through the part where right after Chris fails the polygraph, when they come in and they tell him he failed it, and then Ronnie ends up coming in when he confesses to his dad. So we're actually just gonna read through it and then comment as we go. Okay. So this is post-test. So he just got done taking the polygraph, and they're about to come in and tell him the results. Okay. So while I was out of the room scoring the polygraph charts, Chris remained in the interview room and watched videos on his cell phone of his girls giggling and playing. SA Coder is the FBI agent. So, and then Tammy is the one writing this report, and then SA Coder is, the other FBI agent. Okay. So SA Coder and I returned to the room to speak with Chris about his deception. We also had a printed photograph of Bella and Celeste we placed on the table in front of Chris. I informed Chris it was clear he was not honest during the testing and he did not pass the polygraph test. Chris replied by saying, okay. I told Chris we now needed to talk about what actually happened. Chris stated, I didn't lie to you on that polygraph, I promise. SA Coder told Chris it was time and asked him to stop and take a deep breath. I told Chris that I appreciated him coming to take the polygraph even though he knew he wasn't going to pass the test. I told Chris he stayed because he knew he needed to get everything off his chest. I asked Chris if he could start again and tell us everything that happened. Chris said everything he said was true. I told Chris the most important thing was to find out what happened to Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. Chris said, okay. I told Chris that holding the lie inside of him would do nothing for him, and he responded, I know this. I'm not, trying to, cover things up. Chris said he wants his wife and children to come back home. I told Chris he knew his wife and children were not coming back home. Chris continued to say he hoped his wife and children would come back home. And I don't know that they're not coming back home. SA Coder explained to Chris that we were confused and we had received a lot of leads over the past day. Chris continued to say he didn't know where his wife and children were located. Chris said if I could have my babies back home right now, I would. I want them back. I want everybody back. That is the God's honest truth.
Wow. What God's he?
SA Coder told Chris he couldn't understand why there were two Chris's. Chris then said, I cheated on her. I'm not proud of it. She accused me of it. I denied it, and I feel horrible for it, like she was pregnant. I didn't hurt her. I cheated on her. I hurt her emotionally. Chris admitted he also did not attend the Rockies game. Chris said he went to dinner with her the night of the Rockies game. Chris said the 5 weeks he spent alone, he spent it with her. Chris explained he fell out of love with Shanann because he fell in love with her. SA Coder asked Chris what her name was, and Chris said he didn't want her to get involved in what was going on and didn't want to ruin her life. Yeah, but let's ruin my family's life. Let's take away my wife and my children's life, but I don't want to ruin her life. Oh,
yeah,
I don't know.
He's focused, huh?
Yeah. Chris said she was a wonderful person who knew he was married and that he was having issues in his marriage. Chris said he told her he was going to get separated from Shanann, but he didn't know what that was going to look like.
Can we say death? Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Chris said she took his breath away, and he never thought in a million years something like that could happen. Chris said he never felt that way about anyone in his lifetime as he did about her. SA Coder told Chris that he didn't think his girlfriend hurt anyone and asked Chris if they could leave her out of it and get back to talking about his wife and daughters.
Please, leave my mistress alone.
Chris agreed. SA Coder asked Chris where his wife and children were located, and he said he didn't know. Chris said the affair was the only thing he was holding back. SA Coder reminded Chris that he was not questioned about the infidelity on the polygraph. SA Coder then informed Chris we already knew about his girlfriend, Nikki, later identified as Nicole Kessinger.
NK,
yeah. SA Coder told Chris we were very concerned about his wife and daughters, and Chris said he was also concerned. SA Coder told Chris that it shouldn't have been it should have been the happiest time in their marriage. S.A. Coder said he believes Shanann may have been a controlling person who didn't listen to him and could do whatever she wanted. S.A. Coder said he wanted to give Chris an opportunity to help us find Shanann and the kids. Chris said he would do whatever he could to help us, police, find his wife and children. Chris said he didn't know where his wife and kids were located. S.A. Coder reminded him that his father flew across the country and was waiting in the lobby. S.A. Coder told Chris he was lying to his father and everyone he talked to. S.A. Coder pleaded with Chris to help us find his babies. Chris said he wanted to find them. S.A. Coder asked Chris if we could go back and talk about that night. Chris agreed, and S.A. Coder told Chris the police had his Alexa, which he explained was trained to record distress. And the police also had the contents of his Kessinger's and Shanann's text messages. S.A. Coder asked Chris to tell us again about that evening. Chris reiterated he woke up at 4 a.m. and woke up Shanann at 4:15 a.m. to talk about the house and separation. S.A. Coder asked Chris if they talked about Kessinger, and Chris said Shanann accused him of having someone else. Chris said he denied having an affair. Chris said Shanann asked him why he had a $68 dinner that other night and asked him if there were two of them at dinner. Chris admitted the charge came from his dinner with Kessinger. Chris said he couldn't bring himself to admit the affair because he and Shanann were already crying very hard. Chris said he told Shanann he just wanted to separate. S.A. Coder asked Chris about selling the house, and Chris said Shanann initiated the selling of their home the week prior because both of them knew they couldn't afford to live on their own. Chris said Shanann contacted their realtor named Ann. On Monday, August 13th, Chris, sent Ann a text message asking what she could do.
To unload the house faster?
So on Monday, Chris, sent Ann a text message asking what she could do. So what, Ann could help?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. S.A. Coder then asked Chris to tell him about the pregnancy. Chris said Shanann was about 80-20 when they talked about the pros and cons of having a third child. Chris said after Shanann got pregnant, she told everyone it was his idea. Chris said he wanted to have a son. Chris said Shanann told her friends after she was pregnant she was 70-30 against the pregnancy. Chris said he was confused why Shanann would say such a thing. S.A. Coder asked Chris if he understood that some of what he was saying didn't make sense. Chris said, I know.
I know. Okay.
I know.
Don't make sense, buddy. Okay. Yeah, I know.
S.A. Coder said he didn't understand how a woman and 2 kids could vanish off the face of the earth. Chris said, I promise you, I have nothing on my hands. I did nothing to those kids or her to make them vanish. Right. And I remember that's the time in the interview. Remember when he goes, I have nothing on my hands. I don't know. It's just kind of a weird statement to say, I feel like. Don't you think? When you're asking about it, I have nothing on my hands.
He doesn't. He doesn't care. He doesn't give a shit. He knows. He's about ready. He's either gonna get caught or not get caught, but in either scenario, he doesn't give a shit. He has no remorse about anything. He's numb. He doesn't care. I know.
Yeah.
Hey, I ain't got shit on my hands.
You don't make any sense.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
I don't
care. Can we just get this over with so I can, get back to my somebody? Okay.
Chris told us it was on the video that he left and was in his truck. Chris said I didn't load anything in my truck besides my tools, my container, my book bag, my water jug, my lunchbox. Yeah, you're right. He doesn't say gas can. But right there is a sign when you're reading body language, what people say. The fact that he said I didn't load anything into my truck. He's denying. They didn't even ask him. Did you load anything?
Yeah, he's
volunteering.
What I'm saying? Yeah, he's volunteering this shit right off the bat.
Yeah, he's denying it, but saying it when nobody even accused him of it. You know what I'm saying?
Why are you telling us what you loaded in the truck there, buddy? We didn't even ask you.
Yeah, and the fact that he said I didn't load anything is what I'm saying, because it's nobody even asked you. S.A. Coder asked Chris what happened next, and Chris said he drove out of the driveway. S.A. Coder asked Chris what happened with his wife and kids before he drove out of the driveway. Chris said, I didn't do anything with them. They were still in the house. S.A. Coder asked Chris where his wife and kids went, and Chris said he didn't know. S.A. Coder told Chris that his wife wasn't the type of person to vanish. S.A. Coder told Chris that his wife had plans that day and during the week and did not leave because she wanted to. Chris said K. Like, okay, he just said K. Chris said he didn't do anything to Shanann or the girls. I asked Chris if it was an accident. He replied, I didn't do anything. Again, I asked Chris if it was an accident, and he said there was not an accident, and if there was, he wasn't in the house when it occurred. Chris said he did not cause an accident and didn't do anything to his wife and kids. S.A. Coder asked Chris if it was a misunderstanding, and Chris said the only misunderstanding was that he didn't tell Shanann about the affair.
That, when he says it was not an accident, this is how he can just go about this whole thing with no feeling or emotions, because in his mind what he's doing is, okay, it wasn't an accident, but he knows because it wasn't an accident, he intended on it, was premeditated, he knew he was going to do this, so he's telling them the truth, but inadvertently. Does that make sense? Yeah, it wasn't an accident, so yeah, he's telling the truth, it wasn't an accident. I don't know if that was pertinent to anything.
So Chris said he couldn't bring himself to tell Shanann about the affair. S.A. Coder asked Chris how the separation was going to work, and Chris said he planned on getting his own place. Chris said he anticipated having 50-50 split with the kids. Chris said he planned to take it slow with Kessinger to see if anything developed. I told Chris I found it hard to believe he and Shanann had an emotional conversation with Shanann where they were both crying, and he had yet to shed one tear in the 2 days we interviewed him. Chris said he loved his girls, and it didn't mean anything that he hadn't shed any tears. At that point, Chris appeared to force a sniffle. See, that goes back to maybe if he is, psychopath or a narcissist, that he didn't realize that he should be, and then they mention it, like, that's hard to believe he didn't shed a tear. And he's like, oh, shoot.
That's what I was supposed to do?
That's how I'm supposed to react.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm
right.
saying?
Exactly.
So it makes you wonder, if that was like, oh, yeah, I should have been crying. Because it's like he tried to force a sniffle.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Chris said him not crying didn't mean he didn't love his kids or his wife. I told Chris it didn't make any sense, and he said, I'm hoping they're still around some. I'm hoping they're still somewhere alive. I told Chris he no longer had his girls to take care of, and the loss of them should cause him pain. Chris said he did feel pain. I told Chris I wanted to see the guy who felt bad about what he did and wanted to get it off his chest so the police could find his little girls, so his girls were not out in the middle of a field somewhere. Chris said, I love those girls to death. Whoa, look at those words. Okay, wow. First of all, those girls. Ooh, okay?
Wow.
That's like removing them from, his possession.
Yes,
those girls, they're not his.
Exactly.
To death. Like, I love those girls to death. Mm-hmm. What a choice of words.
That's just totally freaked up. It's just, I'm sorry. It's just not right.
Chris said he was showing us the Chris who cared about his girls and wife. Chris said his lack of tears didn't mean he lacked love for them. I told Chris it was weird and didn't make sense. Chris said he understood and could see my point. I told Chris that I understood how some people could be pushed to do something they regret. Chris said, I know. Wow. S.A. Coder told Chris that we could keep talking to him once we found his girls. S.A. Coder told Chris we would continue to talk to him no matter what he told us. I asked Chris if Shanann did something to the girls, and he said, no, I don't know. I have no clue. I asked Chris, did Shanann do something to them? And did you feel like you had to do something to Shanann? Chris sighed and said, no. They were at the house when I left. They were there. Actually, I wanted to bring up this technique that me and Randy found. The technique that they were actually using. It's called the read technique that they were using by... You guys should look it up. I'll explain a little bit. There's like 9 steps to this technique. It was a method of questioning suspects developed by consultant polygraph expert John Reed. and there's 9 steps, and I just want to read one of the steps. But if you read all through, I mean, it makes sense how they went about using this technique to help to get this confession. But did you want to say something?
No,
okay.
no.
Step 2, I'm going to read, and then you guys should check it out. But step 2 says, try to shift the blame away from the suspect to some other person or set of circumstances that prompted the suspect to commit the crime. That is, develop themes containing reasons that will psychologically justify or excuse the crime. Themes may be developed or changed to find one to which the accused is most responsive. So,
yeah,
I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what. I mean, I'm not a profiler or an FBI agent, but from doing the research, it looks like they used a lot of those steps of that technique in this how they went with interrogating Chris, and it worked, you know.
Yeah.
So,
big time. The REID technique, REID.
Yeah. So, okay, so I'm gonna continue here. Okay, so Chris said no, they were okay. Yeah, they were there. Okay, I told Chris that the only way Shanann and the girls could have left was in his truck. Chris said, "There's no way, cause like I didn't just throw them in my truck." And that's the point we wanted to make. He was kind of inadvertently confessing by denying, because
yes.
I mean, they didn't ask, "Did you throw them in the truck?" They said, "Did Shanann?" Wait, where is it again? It's hard to keep track here. Oh, they said the only way that Shanann and the girls could have left was in his truck. I'm not saying anything about throwing him in his truck, you know, and he said there's no way, like I didn't just throw them in my truck, you know, so he was just like inadvertently almost telling them what he did by telling them, by denying and telling them what he didn't do, if that makes any sense.
Right.
And, you know, they were on to that. They're profilers. They specialize in, like, body language and verbal communication and analyzing.
It's amazing. I love that field.
Yeah, they definitely were on to all of that.
So, what I wanted to put out here real quick, Tiff, is in that one video of yours, when he made the statement just right now, no, I didn't throw them in the truck. This is the freaky part. I don't know if anybody else has seen this, but it correlates with your video. On part of that video, with him backing the truck in and putting the poor family in there, I just thought it was me seeing something. I want to go back over and I want to look at this. It sort of looks like he does throw something into the air, like he literally did just throw his poor kids. I mean, heaved. Look at the video. You can see something like just something going through the air.
From where to where, though?
From him.
Yeah.
Out of his hands, like that.
No, I know, but I mean, like, was he outside the truck into the truck?
He was outside the truck,
like,
throwing in.
Like, how far? I'm trying to get a good picture.
Close.
Like, on the other side, and he just went, like, kind of like, how?
He was on the driver's side.
Okay.
Back by the bed, where you see the shadow. And when he came up, and you don't see his arms or anything, but you do see him throwing something. There is something in that video that shows.
So it's more like, kind of like that? Or literally he just throws it and it's flying in the air?
Yeah, just like flinging it
like
a...
I know. Be too heavy to throw?
I don't know what it is, but I'm telling you.
Huh.
I want to go back and look at it, because this just brought it to my attention. I just thought it was, something in the footage. But, yeah.
But, I mean, he could also, like, throwing them could be, like, kind of just throw, you know what I'm saying? Like, not literally throwing them, but people use that, if they just throw something in the car real quick, like, instead.
But this is how it looked.
But I didn't think, actually throw it.
This is what this image looked like.
Really?
It actually just looked like just nonchalantly, just, heaving them.
I didn't catch that. I'm going to have to look.
Now, yeah, because some of this footage on him loading the family into the truck has not been released, and it won't be released because it's too graphic and too it'll really freak people out, I guess. And
like from the
that's from the
camera?
No, this is from I don't know what camera. Yes, it was from a different camera because the DA actually has that footage, and they don't want to release it. They won't. So maybe that's part of the discovery files that hasn't been released as well.
But how do you know for sure? I'm confused.
Because I was reading that in the Colorado CBI statement.
What did it say?
Well, it just said that there is footage that during the process of the hearing, the Ruchek family, and the brother Frankie actually watched the video and seeing clearly that he had put, I believe it was the kids, in trash bags, and because Frankie, after he seen that, he was like, "You put my niece and nephew in trash bags," you know.
I mean, go ahead.
So yeah, no, so that's the footage that we haven't seen. That side of the truck, him loading. And so that would have came from another person's house, probably.
I mean, a lot of people have been saying that. Are you sure you heard? I've heard so many comments saying that, but I haven't been able to find it anywhere. Like actually by the discovery or anything.
I'll
so
go
you
back.
have to show
I'll
me.
go back, yeah, because
a lot of people have said they've seen it somewhere, and that's what I was asking.
Okay,
I want to know,
okay,
like, I want to actually
where we
see
need
it
to
because
collaborate. Yep.
No, yeah, I haven't seen it anywhere like in Discovery or no like document type, but so many comments have said that they heard that too.
Okay.
So maybe they've read it. So you got to show me because.
Yeah, definitely.
So you said it's in the. Is it in the Discovery or is it in?
I will check. I don't want to
else?
lie. I don't want to.
You're
put
sure
out
it was like an
misinformation.
actual from the cops?
Yeah. It was actually yes, and this was a
Wow.
legitimate site that I had gotten this information from.
Wow, he didn't even tell me about that.
No, because it's.
But
like,
I've been wondering.
Yeah, when I get home from work, just recently I've been able to do some answer some comments, and I'm like seriously tearing shit apart, and it just takes forever. So that's why I haven't been mentioning anything to Tiff yet.
Yeah, I have to.
But there are a lot of things that I ran across that.
Yeah,
I
well,
think
next
would be
time
interesting
we'll
on
have
another
to
video.
Tell us
on
for
another
sure,
video,
where we could put the document up so people could see it.
Sure,
because a lot of people have said it, or like from hearsay, but there are a few people that say it like facts. You know what I'm saying? And I haven't seen it yet, so that's cool. I mean, not cool, but like. I've been trying to find it. I have not found it anywhere.
Yeah,
so when he shows me or whatever, I could put it up on a video of the document or...
Exactly. Well, I'll do that. I'll definitely...
Or if you guys all know exactly where to find that, that's crazy. I just wonder if... was the footage from the doorbell camera or... I don't know, some people were saying the doorbell camera, it doesn't pick up because when Chris explains, it picks up right there where that gravel starts. So if he was at the truck, it would be too far to start picking up the motion, huh?
Yeah.
I'm not sure for sure, but somebody... And if you do watch that video,
he says that video
it picks up right
has
here.
been obtained from the people who cross the street, probably. Or at least one of those houses across the street, because whatever it was clear enough for... the Ruchek family to see that they were put in trash bags and just literally thrown in the truck. And that's when it raises that, that's when I start thinking about your footage that you had put up. You see something projecting through the air rather quickly too.
Like how far from the car? I'm trying to picture it.
It's close, but I guess
so
you just don't pick up on it until
he kind of throws it like I'm just trying to picture what, because I couldn't see him like being like feet away and just throwing it but like I could see like right there. I don't know.
He was pretty damn close to his truck and just boom.
So ew.
But you can see in that footage. Go back and look at your video.
No, I will. I will.
And if you pay attention, you can see. Something arcing in the air.
I see the motion where I think it's when he's carrying Shanann, where I show like the shadow kind of jerking up and like it almost. I don't know if this is the one you're talking about, but it's almost looked like he's picking her up maybe from the ground back in the garage, and then you can see the shadow, and then he kind of like goes like this kind of a motion, like.
Oh, well, see,
into
maybe
the car like that. That's what I see.
Maybe that is actually the trash bag, the reflection of the moonlight or something on the trash bag that I'm seeing.
No, but I was thinking that one was when it was Shanann, because you could tell it was really heavier than a kid.
Well, it could have been something to that effect.
But you could be talking about another one, or it could be that one.
But I am talking about your
like
video.
the motion. No, I know, but that part I'm saying, the motion, like, you see it kind of him jerk up, and then he kind of like because it's like he's almost like kind of like struggling, you know. But you could be talking about a different thing, and I don't even know if I'm right actually.
Well, I mean, maybe,
but it kind of looks like that motion where he's like into the car as he's walking like that.
Because that arcing motion is similar to what I've seen. So maybe whatever he had Shanann in, wrapped up in, maybe it was a reflection of the light off of that. But there is an arcing.
You're right. That would look like a throwing them, because it'd be like, and then it's just kind of like that.
And you definitely see him throwing something. You see him throwing something.
So I don't know. He's
just, that's all I want to give about that. Yeah, just no fucking feelings there at all. No feelings.
Okay, so I'm going to continue here. No, are you done then?
I am done. Yes.
Okay. I reminded Chris his truck had a GPS installed. I asked Chris if he knew the GPS would ping every 10 seconds, and he said yes. I told Chris we were going to find out exactly where he went. Chris said, I know. SA Coder asked Chris if we weren't asking him the right questions. And Chris said, you're asking all the questions. SA Coder asked Chris what we were doing wrong, and he said we weren't doing anything wrong. SA Coder asked Chris if Shanann did something, and he said, I don't think she did anything to these kids. Look how he says these kids again.
Like that's when his thought process starts to go.
It's like not even taking ownership. You know what I'm saying? Like
he's just distancing himself from even having a family. He's not a father no more. He's not a father.
And then
because he's just killed them.
And he says we both love them with all of our hearts. There's no way. I told Chris it could have been an accident because I knew something happened inside his house. I asked Chris if something happened to his baby girls, and then he felt like he needed to take something into his own hands and deal with it. SA Coder asked if he had to clean up something for Shanann. I told Chris I knew he loved the girls with all of his heart, but sometimes people make mistakes. SA Coder asked Chris what he was thinking about, and he replied, she couldn't have. I asked Chris which one of his girls had breathing problems. Chris explained both of his girls had inhalers, but Cece had the endoscopy and surgeries. I asked Chris if he thought Cece had trouble breathing, and Shanann freaked out and decided she didn't want to live without her baby girl. Chris said he didn't think so. Next, I talked to Chris about a cold case homicide from Aurora where a male beat a family to death with a ball-peen hammer?
Yeah.
Oh, I never. What's a ball-peen hammer?
It's that wooden handled hammer, and it's got a little round ball on the end of it on one side, and then just a flat spot on the other.
Man.
Hammer.
I told Chris that the only survivor of the attack was a 3-year-old girl. I told Chris the girl grew up with no family, and she admitted she wished she had died with her family. These are sticking together. I told Chris I have seen parents panic and decide their children can't live without each other. I told Chris I have also worked on a case where a mother smothered her 2 children because she didn't want her husband to take her children away from her. I told Chris that the mother felt like she was doing right by her children and was saving them future pain. Chris looked at me and asked why. How is she saving them pain? I told Chris the mom didn't want them to have to live without her.
He's looking for an excuse. He's looking for that officer to give him an excuse to use. Or at least some type of reasoning to use.
Yeah, good point.
Wow. I'm just grabbing some coffee. Be right back.
SA Coder told Chris it was a weight that was going to be on him forever unless we could resolve it. I told Chris we were giving him a lifeline and he needed to reach out and take it. SA Coder then pointed to the photograph of Bella and Celeste and asked Chris if the girls looked like the photograph. Chris pointed to Celeste and explained she wore the same dress on August 8th or 9th because he recalled having to unbutton the 2 buttons on the back of the dress in order to get her pajamas on that evening. SA Coder asked Chris if he made sure the girls were warm when they left the house, and Chris seemed confused and said his girls were always warm and their beds were always warm. SA Coder asked Chris if they were taken care of the girls at the very end, and he said the girls were always taken care of and never missed a meal. I told Chris he took the girls out of the house with their blankets and animals because he cared. Chris said, I'm always caring for these kids. These kids. There's nothing in this they're my family. I told Chris I believed either he or Shanann made a mistake. I told Chris I was getting concerned that maybe he did something to all three of them. Chris said, I did not do anything to these kids. I asked Chris what Shanann did to the girls, and he immediately asked if he could talk to his dad. S.A. Coder asked Chris if he would please tell his dad what happened. Chris said he had been in there for five or 6 hours and asked if he could just talk to his dad. S.A. Coder recommended Chris' dad come into the interview room. Instead, there was a lot of activity in the lobby area of the police department. S.A. Coder asked Chris what he would tell his dad, and Chris said he would tell his dad he loved him and wanted him to be by his side. S.A. Coder told Chris that it seemed he wanted to get everything off his chest and asked him if he could explain further what happened between Shanann and the girls. Chris said he talked to Shanann about the separation to the house. He talked about the separation, the house, and Shanann asked about the affair. Chris said Shanann had mascara running down her face and was very emotional. S.A. Coder asked Chris if he promised to talk to his dad and tell him everything, and Chris agreed. S.A. Coder asked Chris if it would be easier for him to tell his dad and his dad could tell us. Chris said, I don't know. S.A. Coder said he believed Chris was the type of guy who needed to take responsibility. S.A. Coder said he was worried his dad would distract him, and Chris asked if S.A. Coder meant it would distract him from talking to us. Chris said he just needed to talk to his dad. At that point, S.A. Coder and I met with Chris's father, Ronnie Watts, in the lobby. Ronnie was wearing a polo shirt that had Papa Ronnie embroidered on the chest. We explained to Ronnie that Chris wanted to talk to him about what happened. We also informed Ronnie that everything that was said in the interview would be audio and video recorded. Ronnie said it was fine and told us he understood. Ronnie was escorted to the interview room, and we told Ronnie and Chris that they could have as much time as they needed. Chris pointed to the digital recorder on the table and asked if we were going to leave it in the room, and we said yes. The door was shut for privacy, but still had the key in the lock. Ronnie asked Chris if he was going to tell him what was going on. Chris told Ronnie he failed the polygraph. Chris said they're not going to let me go. Ronnie asked if there was a reason why the police wouldn't let him go. Chris said the police knew he had an affair. And if you see like the way he says that, it's almost like, well, it's obvious. I think he already told his dad about the affair. It's like he's saying, they know about the affair. Like, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You agree? Don't you think that's... Definitely. So he already told his dad about the affair. No. You could tell. Ronnie asked Chris if he was going to tell him what happened. Chris said when he and Shanann had a conversation that morning, it was emotional as they spoke about the separation. Chris said he went downstairs and then told his dad, I don't want to protect her. I don't want to protect her, but I don't know what else to say. Ronnie asked him what happened, and Chris replied, she hurt them. Chris said, and then I freaked out and hurt her. Ronnie asked Chris if Shanann and the girls left after that, and Chris didn't answer. Ronnie asked if Shanann started hurting the kids, and Chris said Ronnie told him to talk to him and tell him what happened. Chris whispered, she smothered them. They were smothered. And if you notice, that's that's what he first said, smothered. Chris said smothered at first, okay? Okay, so Ronnie immediately asked, they what? Chris answered, she strangled them. Ronnie asked, she smothered them or choking them? Chris replied by saying, I didn't hear anything. When I was downstairs, they came back up and they were gone. I don't know, me talking to her about that, talking to her about the separation and everything, about, I don't know, what else to say, because I freaked out and did the same thing to effing her. Those were my kids. Ronnie asked Chris if Shanann freaked out over the separation as he was leaving for work. Chris said Shanann laid back down when he went downstairs, but he heard a little commotion upstairs and didn't think much about it. Chris said he went back upstairs and saw Shanann on top of Cece. Ronnie asked Chris if Shanann was choking Cece. So, okay, now Ronnie's saying choking, and if Shanann killed Cece. Chris said they were blue. And you'll notice that when Ronnie keeps trying to clarify, was she choking, was she smothering him, he almost never answers. There's a lot of times where he doesn't answer and he says something else. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of interesting. Go ahead.
He forgot his conversation with his father on the way from the airport. That's what that was. Guaranteed. He's trying to think. What was it? Dad got it. What did Dad tell me? smothered or strangled.
Or in a way, I mean, you could be right. Or in a way, I feel like maybe.
Yeah, my opinion, guys.
I'm not sure. He could have, or I'm thinking maybe if he just told his dad what happened, but they didn't know what they were gonna do, like how they were gonna get out of it. So maybe like he told him that he killed them, and whatever excuse he gave them, or whatever, however he told Ronnie it went down. But maybe like Ronnie and him were like, "Well, just deny it, just take the polygraph. Hopefully they won't find out." And they weren't really gonna know how they were gonna go about it, hoping that he could get out of it somehow.
Yeah.
But
that was his
I don't know. I'm not sure if they for sure came up with a plan if he didn't get out of it. Do you think? Like, if they know you're lying, then we'll say Shanann did it. Because I almost feel like that the agents put that in his head, though. But I don't know. But then there are other cases. Like, this interview is kind of weird. You're right, though. Yes. It's like, when you hear how the interview goes, it's almost like he is coaching him. Like he's he's forgetting, or it's like he's trying to help him come up with the idea. But do you think maybe he's just coming up with the idea? They're trying to come up with on the fly. So Ronnie's trying to kind of help him on the fly of like leading him into what he should say. You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
because he knows. And even if Chris didn't tell him on the way home or on the way there from the airport, which I think, I don't know, I think maybe he did. But even if he didn't, his dad probably, knowing Chris so well and being so close with him, probably already had an idea then, just by reading his body language, reading how he was acting, so maybe he didn't tell him in words, but it was probably all over his face in guilt, and his dad probably could see right through him. So I think regardless, I think Ronnie knew or had a good idea.
Yeah, there's another.
I really do, because that's his son and they were close. So
Papa Ronnie knew.
We didn't even know him and we could read it all, it was so obvious he was lying. So I think, I don't know, I'm leaning more towards that he was just trying to figure out what they were going to say, and that,
very good possibility, but I still
think
the
agents did put it in his head.
I still think that nice ride from DIA to wherever they were going, they had an in-depth conversation.
They were trying to. You're saying that you think they were trying to figure out what they're going to tell.
The father was trying to justify what he did, and trying to give him structure as to
on the way home from the airport.
Yes, yes. So you think the father was trying to give him structure on how to make it seem like you're going to be okay. You're going to get out of this.
Oh yeah,
this is what you do. This is what you say.
You think he told him to say Shanann did it?
Yeah.
You think that?
Yeah. I think so. I think, like I said, this is my opinion, and this is what this channel is about. To get everybody's opinions together and something, comes of it.
A part of me thinks that he told him, but I'm saying even if he did tell him, I'm not sure if they were planning on, like they discussed, let's say that Shanann did it. They discussed it like that. But maybe,
how long do you think that drive from the DIA to, where'd they go, Fredericksburg?
I don't know. This one might have been in Lakewood, though. I don't know, because I know some of the interviews were in Lakewood. We used to live in Lakewood, Colorado.
So, and if that's in Lakewood, that's a good...
Frederick is like by Broomfield, I think.
That's all the way up past Gun Barrel.
So how far is it from DIA?
It's
probably at least an hour, right?
Oh, easy. Yeah.
So depending on exactly where the police were,
that's a lot of time.
Yeah,
that's a lot of time. Yeah.
But if anybody, it would have been his dad. If he told anybody, it would have been
Papa
his dad.
Ronnie. Papa Ronnie on his shirt, huh? Yeah. And how old is Chris?
I think 34? 34,
somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Do they have any younger kids, brother?
He has a sister, older sister.
Yeah, older, huh?
Just, I wonder what that because that was at least an hour drive. Ronnie was at least asking him, son, did you do anything? Would he have lied to his dad? Because don't you think, unless if his dad didn't want to accuse him, but I don't know. I think he probably did ask him. I don't know.
Yeah.
So he heard a little commotion upstairs, didn't think much about it. Chris said he went back upstairs and saw Shanann on top of Cece. Ronnie asked Chris if Shanann was choking Cece and if Shanann killed Cece. Chris said they were blue. Ronnie asked both of them, and Chris said yes. Ronnie asked if Shanann choked both of them to death. See, now he's using choked again. But I know, like, originally he said smothered, and then he said strangled, and then his dad's like, his dad asked him, smothered or choking? And then Chris didn't even answer the question and went on to something else. I didn't hear anything,
Yeah.
And then when he asked,
excuse me.
Where is that? When Ronnie asked if Shanann was choking Cece and killed Cece, he avoided it again, and he said they were blue. And then Ronnie asked both of them, and Chris said yes. Ronnie asked if Shanann choked both of them to death, and he said, watch, he avoids it again. He said, I freaked out and did the same thing to effing her. Okay, so Ronnie said, oh my God. Chris said he didn't call the police about... Chris said he didn't call the police about what happened. Ronnie asked...
Go.
So then what'd you do? Haul the bodies off or something? That's what the dad says.
Instead of asking, why? Why didn't you call the police? Why?
Yeah, because he says, I didn't call the police about what happened, and that's what he says. Instead of why wouldn't you call the police? He says, then what'd you do? Haul the bodies off or something? Oh my gosh. You could tell he is Chris's
told
father.
him about dumping him in the truck on the way home from the airport. Son of a bitch.
Okay. Chris said he didn't know what else to do and freaked out. Ronnie reiterated that Shanann... See how even the person writing the report, Ronnie reiterated that Shanann choked both Bella and Cece to death, and he, Chris, lost it and choked Shanann. So he's reiterating choked, So I think it's like... It's really putting it in Chris's head choked. I know he did say... He said smothered, then he said strangled, but then I think... I don't know. And then Ronnie keeps saying choked. So I think he's still like putting it in his head, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because we all know they were smothered. So we still don't understand why. Well, number one, I guess Ronnie kind of put it in his head, but Chris was there. He knew. Why wouldn't he say no, smothered?
Because he doesn't know how. He needs to be told what to say.
Yeah,
he doesn't know how to form this. So yeah, and even though it's not the right thing to say, he's waiting for that, and he knows he's just got to be told.
Yeah,
he's got to be told.
Wow, you're right. Okay, so what'd you do? Haul the bodies off or something? And Chris said he didn't know what else to do and freaked out. Ronnie reiterated that Shanann choked both Bella and Cece to death, and Chris, lost it and choked Shanann. Ronnie clarified with Chris if he choked Shanann, and Chris said, that's just, it's rage. Chris told his dad he was sorry, and Ronnie told him he knew he was sorry. Chris said he knew Shanann knew in her heart about his affair, but she was waiting for him to admit it. Chris said she believed Shanann just lost it because she knew he was cheating and he denied it. Ronnie asked Chris if that was the point Shanann went off, and Chris said it was when Shanann started crying.
That's when he went off.
Chris asked his dad what was going to happen. Like, Dad, what's going to happen? Like,
yeah. No, you're right. Exactly. Wow.
Ronnie asked if Shanann was upset over the separation or the affair. Chris said he believed Shanann thought he was having an affair. Chris said he kept denying the affair to Shanann. Chris said he had talked to Shanann prior about separating, but Shanann hoped they could go to counseling. Chris said he didn't want to go to counseling. Chris told his dad it would be the last time he would see the light of day. And Ronnie questioned why Shanann would have hurt them babies. I don't know. Okay. Ronnie continued to apologize to Chris and told him he would love him no matter what. Ronnie asked Chris if S.A. Coder knew about what happened, and Chris said he wanted to tell Ronnie first. Ronnie said, well, we need to find a good lawyer and see what in the hell they can do. And as soon as S.A. Coder and Tammy were watching, through the monitor, as soon as they heard lawyer, they came right in.
Yeah.
Because they don't know. They want him to keep talking. They do not want him to get a lawyer.
Tell us everything.
At that point, S.A. Coder and I re-entered the interview room, and Ronnie said, come on in. I asked Chris if he was doing okay, and Ronnie said, no, he's not. So he's answering for him.
Yeah.
I sat down next to Chris and asked Chris to help us work through everything with him. I asked Chris to tell us what he told his dad. Chris said after he and Shanann had their conversation Monday morning, Shanann accused him of the affair and he denied it. Chris said Shanann knew in her heart that he was having an affair. Chris said Shanann also knew about the dinner from Saturday night and that it was too expensive for just him. Chris said he went downstairs, started packing up some things, and heard a couple of things upstairs. Chris said he didn't think anything about the noise. Chris said he continued packing and went upstairs to talk to Shanann before he left for work. Chris said he saw... Chris said he continued packing and went upstairs to talk to Shanann before he left for work. Chris said he saw on the baby monitor that Bella's covers were pulled off and she was just lying in bed. Chris said he figured Bella was just hot. Chris said the baby monitor cycled over to Cece's room and she, Shanann, was in there with her, on top of her. Chris said he freaked out and ran into Cece's bedroom and got on top of Shanann. Chris said Cece was blue and those were my babies. Those were my kids. I asked Chris what happened and he said I did the same thing to her. Chris said he was in Cece's room when he did the same thing to Shanann. Chris then described that he put Shanann back in their bed. Chris said he didn't know what to do. He was shaken. Chris said both of my kids were blue and they were gone. Chris said, and just like blind, I'm not that person. Like she hurt my kids. I had to do the same thing to her. I asked Chris what happened after Shanann was in her bed, and he said he pulled the sheets back over Shanann and covered her up because I couldn't see. I couldn't look at her. I felt horrible for what I did. Then I look at my kids and see what she did. Okay, guys, we're gonna stop there actually, and we'll continue it. We'll continue it later. So.
A lot of different things or new things coming up. So yeah, a lot of analyzation coming up.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, thanks for listening. Actually.
Yeah, thank you, and just comment. Keep the comments coming in because it gives us a lot of insight onto new things and. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of things now that I've just ran across too that I'm gonna really tear apart. So. It's good. It's going good. And a lot of things by your comments, it makes me see things.
Definitely,
I gotta look
this
into
is why I'm looking at
into
things.
That. Yeah. So,
we're looking for the truth. That's it. You know.
Yes, and like I've said in my other videos, Shanann, Bella, Celeste, Nico, their families are all in my prayers every day.
Yes, definitely. God bless the entire family
her
and
family.
their friends. And God bless all you guys, you know.
Her mom and dad, her brother, everybody. I mean, her whole family. I feel for him. And you know, once again, it's very tragic case that we have to that we are all dissecting right now, and it's hard. It really is hard, and to do this and still be sensitive about it. And some people might think that we're insensitive about this, but we're not. Well, God knows we're not. You gotta realize, man, there's a lot of times, like I said, these are raw emotions coming out here with me and Tiff when we do this. And you have to just find that little piece of something that was said that is that is ridiculous and laugh at it. Okay, we're laughing at the statement. We're not laughing at the individual themselves or the situation. Never, God forbid. No.
Never. This is just how to ease the tension, the sickness of this, you know. But that's it for about now.
Like as far as like the stupidity and the evilness of
who
did this, Chris. Like that's usually what. When we laugh, it's just.
It's definitely not about the case, guys. It's not.
Yeah, it's just.
And if you are, a subscriber and you know what we're about, you know we're not making fun of anybody or laughing about anything, any of the tragic events. We're us, that's just it.
And I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like that just from watching all those videos of Shanann and and their kids, I feel like I know her, like on a level.
Of course.
It's crazy.
When
like
you tear it apart.
I really like her. Every video I watch, it's like I like her more and more. The more that I learn about her and watch her videos, and it's just, I feel like I have this personal attachment to this case because they don't have a voice, you know. So we're all trying to give them a voice. They're not here to stick up for themselves or to help people see, you know, the truth and what really happened, and to just give them a voice, like defend them. And I don't know.
And, you know, and I've seen by the way, the comments that are coming in are awesome. We love you guys. But there's also comments too that the Ruchek family would like to, you know, just, it's not right for us to analyze this case or you know, carry on with it because it's very disrespectful, and that the Ruchek family doesn't want that, or, you know, they just want to let it be laid to rest. But you have to understand that in the beginning, you even heard Miss Ruchek say in the news interview that she is so glad that Chris reached out to the social media, you know. So just number one, so he can catch himself, but also these channels like this, and hopefully ours, gives them that great feeling that, you know, there are people out there who are caring and loving, and for, you know, just so much sympathy goes out to them. And let's hope that's how they're perceiving this, you know. Of course, you're gonna have some people out there have channels, conspiracy theory channels. Yeah, we're not about that. We're just about, you know, we're just about trying to find the truth, you know. And if we can, we will. But at the same token, we you know, we have a heart, definitely.
Yes. All right, guys. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.